Sorry for the delay in uploading my videos due to my personal health reasons. After a long time, I am uploading some videos, and this video will discuss about India's foreign trade and its trade deficit since the period of independence. Before going into the thorough discussion of India's foreign trade and trade deficit, first let me explain you about what is this trade deficit, which we already discussed in the previous classes. See, usually exports and imports, which means exchange of goods and services with a medium of exchange, that is exports and imports, which means exchange of goods and services with a medium of exchange called money, is nothing but a trade. So here exports means selling of goods and services, imports means buying of goods and services. So a combined activity of these exports as well as imports is called as a trade, and we are discussing here about the foreign trade. So exports and imports of a country with foreign countries is nothing but a foreign trade. So exports and imports, that means selling and buying of goods and services with other countries, is nothing but foreign trade. Now exports means we are selling goods and services. Since we are selling goods and services, we are gaining some money. So money is coming into our pocket. So we are gaining. We are manufacturing a good or we are making a service and we are selling it. So we are gaining some money. So exports will give us money. So exports, which means selling, more exports, more money, that means more gain. So always that is a positive. Always exports are positive. Now imports, which means buying of goods and services, always when we make a buy, that means when we are buying, the money goes out of our pocket. That means we are losing. Of course we are buying something, but when we are buying, we lose some money for that buying. So we are buying something by losing some money. So always that is a burden. Imports may be for the development of the country or for the necessity of the people or a mandatory necessity of the economy, whatever it may be. Import means it is buying, that means money is running out of our pocket. So imports, which means buying, more imports, more burden. Since money is going out of our pocket in imports, it is always a minus. The difference between these exports as well as imports, the difference between these exports as well as imports, that means through exports we get some money, that is plus. Say a country A has got nearly 200 crores through exports. That means we sold something, so we got 200 crores. Now the same country with imports, it had paid something around 180 crores. Something around 180 crores. Now this is plus, this is minus. What is the net here? The net is, if we subtract 180 crores, which is a burden, which is a negative, from the 200 crores gained through exports, the net is 20 crores. It is positive. This 20 crores is positive. Why? Because the exports are 20 crores excess than the imports. So here it is a positive. The difference between exports as well as imports, that means the net difference of exports as well as imports is called as a trade balance. Is called as a trade balance. This trade balance, that is the net of exports and imports, when it is negative, that means it is negative. How it becomes negative? It becomes negative when the imports are more and imports are excess than the exports. That means let us reverse this situation. That is, this 200 crores is of imports and this 180 crores is of exports. That means exports are less than the imports. That means through exports we got 180 crores and through exports we got 180 crores. Through imports we paid 200 crores. That means in an excess 20 crores was paid from our pocket. So it is a negative. A trade balance, that is a net of exports and imports, which is negative due to more imports than the exports, is called a trade deficit. So a trade deficit is nothing but a trade deficit is a negative balance of trade. A trade deficit is a negative balance of trade. What is the meaning of negative balance of trade? Nothing but the net of exports and imports is nothing but the balance of trade, which is when negative becomes negative balance of trade. So such a negative balance of trade is nothing but trade deficit. Due to some reasons, almost all the countries will have much imports, and sometimes the imports may overcome the exports and a trade deficit may exist. Almost all the countries will definitely have a trade deficit, but that is not going to be a problem when it is in a limited deficit. That is going to be a severe problem when it is more. A trade deficit of order 1 to 2% is not a problem. It is a healthy sign for an economy. But a trade deficit of 4 to 8% order is always a negative. It is not a good sign for the economy. 4 to 8% is not good, but 1 to 2% is good. So when the trade deficit is between 1 to 2%, it is not a problem. But when the trade deficit is 4 to 8%, it is an alarm that something disruption is going on in the economy. Immediately it should be set off. Otherwise, acute foreign exchange reserves deficiency may hit the economy. So almost all the countries will try to control their trade deficit within 2% or sometimes 3%. Right. I hope you understood about the trade deficit clearly. Now let us go into the thorough discussion of India's foreign trade and trade deficit since independence. Okay. First let me explain you it with the beginning, that is 1947 to 1951. This is the period of India's independence. Now, during the period of independence, India is in a beginning stage. So usually a country which is in a beginning stage, will have to set everything from the abroad. Why? Because that country is just then beginning its journey. So we cannot expect that all the manufacturing capabilities and all the calibers of using the available resources will be in handy with the country. No, we cannot expect that all such calibers will be in handy of that country. So whether it has to bought the resources or it has to bring the technology from abroad to manufacture the goods. Definitely such difficulties will exist in every country in the beginning. Now, what are such difficulties faced by India during this period of 1947-1951? This is the period of our independence, and everything which happened before independence will definitely show the effect here. what is such a thing which showed the effect during this time? Before independence, the Indian farmers had a severe blow with the revenue taxation system of the British. Some Jamindari, Mahalwari and Raitwari systems of taxation were implemented by the British government on the Indian farmers. The Indian farmers were not able to pay such huge taxes. So they left the lands uncultivated and they went in search of another work. Because of the uncultivation of the land, the yield of the food crops just started coming down. So because of the shortfall of food crops, and apart from that reason, partition of India, which also showed another effect of shortage in food crops as well as commercial crops, created a shortfall of food crops as well as commercial crops which are useful as raw materials. Finding no choice, that it is immediately very tough to bring back all the farmers to cultivate the land, India had no chance other than to import the food grains for the survival of its people. So food grains were imported during the period of 1947 to 51. Why the food grains were imported? Because of the uncultivation of the land by the farmers, the food grain production came down, and to fulfill the necessity of the people and to get the grains distributed to the people of India, food grains were imported. And I also told that because of the partition of India, the commercial crop yield also came down. The commercial crops like jute are very useful as raw materials, jute as well as cotton, sugar, etc. And so such raw materials were also imported by India during this period, that is during the period of independence, on the eve of independence. And I told you just now, in the beginning it is tough that a country can have the caliber of producing the goods, that is technology, equipment, machinery and raw materials. All these are not ready for a country which is just beginning its journey. So it has to import them. So the government of India had imported equipment, machinery and capital goods. With all these three, equipment, machinery capital goods, in the beginning itself the trade deficit has gone up to India, and the average annual trade deficit during the period of independence, remember I am discussing about average annual trade deficit on the eve of independence. So that average annual trade deficit was of the order of 108 crores. How much? 108 crores of annual average trade deficit of India. During the beginning of the journey of a country, it is a huge amount, but there is no other chance. And what happened in the next years? Now let us go through the next years. The next phase is 1951 and 1956. During this period, our first government was established, and this first government which was established with the general elections, first general elections in India, has got the complete sovereign authoritative power. And this sovereign authoritative power had given the facility for the government of India to take the decision to import technology from abroad. What is the necessity of import of technology from abroad? See, India is an agro-based economy. This agro-based economy is getting the income twice a year. Why? Why the income was received only twice a year? See, even though there are 3 crops a year, we cannot expect that all the 3 crops will be good. We can expect on a maximum that only 2 crops will be good. And since India is an agro-based economy, we can expect on an average 2 good crops, and until the harvested crop came handy and it was sold in the market, we cannot expect an income. So once almost all the crop was harvested, see, there will be seasons. Only during the harvested seasons only the farmers will get money, and through a tax on the food grains or something which is sold when the crop was harvested, the government will get the tax, and that is nothing but the income. So since 2 crops, there will be 2 harvested seasons, and only twice the income will be received by government. But we need a speed income for the fast development of the country. So speed income and instantaneous income is only possible through rapid industrialization. Rapid industrialization will facilitate the fast production of goods and services, and such manufactured goods and services can be immediately sold in the market depending upon the demand and necessity, and instant income will be received. So our country just focused on rapid industrialization, even though the priority was given to agriculture. So during this period, even though the priority was given to agriculture, some priority was also given for rapid industrialization of India. So just before I told you about the import of food grains, that import of food grains continued here. Food grains continued, as well as just like the past phase, previous phase, equipment and machinery also imported, and capital goods were also imported, raw material was also imported. Along with them, technology also added up here, and with the food grains import, equipment and machinery import, and technology import for the modernization of industry, now this time the average annual trade deficit has gone to 467 crores. Remember, this negative sign which I indicated here is to show that it is a trade deficit, that's all. It doesn't mean that a minus in the account. No, this minus is indicated here so that you can understand it is the trade deficit. It is not to subtract. Remember, once again, this minus is an indication of trade deficit of India. So during the period of 1951 and 56, we can say this is the period of first plan of India. Minus 467 was the minus 467. Once again I am telling you, minus means indication of trade deficit, and this 467 crores was the acute trade deficit. Along with all these, we can also give the contribution in this trade deficit to the industrial policy, first industrial policy which was introduced by Government of India during this period, 1950-51. The first industrial policy of India which facilitated for the modernization and expansion of heavy industry. Okay, now let us go to the next phase, that is 1956 and 1961. Here 1956 to 1961 is the phase of second 5-year plan of India, and the implication of the first industrial policy also showed an effect here, and the industrial policy effect of rapid modernization of industry, and along with that establishment of heavy industries like steel plants. You know, with the help of Russia and with the help of Britain, we established some heavy steel plants. Such heavy steel plants incurred huge imports, and the technology import for such heavy industries, as well as investment of huge capital in equipment and machinery which were also imported, has incurred huge import costs on the government of India. Now let me write here what are the reasons for the imports here. Heavy industries, steel plants, etc., and rapid expansion of Indian railways for a rapid transportation system, so that everything can be transported to nook and corner of the country, so that the necessities of the public will be fulfilled. So rapid expansion of railway tracks and buying locomotive engines for Indian Railway. Locomotive engines were also bought on a large scale for Indian Railway, because the locomotive factories were just then beginning in India, and these two incurred huge import costs to India. You know, the order of the acute trade deficit to India during this period, that is 1956 and 1961, the average trade deficit is of around 613 crores. 613 crores is the trade deficit of India during this period, mostly contributed by heavy industries establishment like steel plants, etc., rapid expansion of railway traction, buying locomotive engines, and import of fertilizers was also another reason. So among these, you know which contributed less? See, in the previous phases, import of food grains also took place. Now a happy news is, during this period, import of food grains had come down a little bit due to good results of the land distribution system implemented by Government of India to the landless laborers. That is a benefit. That is, import of food grains came down. Other than that, heavy industries establishment, rapid expansion of railway tracks and buying locomotive engines, and the remaining imports which continued in the previous phases also continued here. What are they? Import of equipment, import of technology, import of capital goods and machinery also continued here also, and all these accumulated to a trade deficit of 613 crores. I hope you understood. In the next video, I will discuss about the second part and the remaining phases, where we are going to discuss about the foreign trade and trade deficit of India.